it. I can guarantee I'll be what you need. Just call me.
Welcome to Song 43, a podcast for those of you looking to get a deeper look at how this creator creates while being a mom, working full-time, and doing all the things. This episode finds me joined by my incredible mom, Julie Harris, whom I've talked about having on the show for quite some time. We finally made it happen, and this will hopefully be the first of a few episodes because she's got a lot of stories to tell, and I don't want to miss any of them. So we start kind of from the beginning and follow her through her early 20s, 30s, and then kind of leave it from there. So I learned a bunch, so I hope you'll learn a bunch. And give it a listen. It is a little bit noisier in terms of my typical recordings. Something I'm learning is that I suck at recording two people in the same room, but I'm gonna get better at it. Dang it. So anyway, be kind, listen, leave me a comment, let me know how you're liking it. And for now, sit back and listen and learn a little bit more about my awesome mom, Julie Harris. Here we are.
Unbelievable.
I know. How long has it taken us?
It's taken us a long time.
Okay. Yeah. All the guilt has been laid upon me.
I'm gifted at giving guilt trips.
You are. It's good times. So, yeah, this is my mom, Julie Harris.
That's me.
Mm-hmm. Not to be confused with the actress, Julie Harris.
No.
Star of the stage in her own right.
Yes.
Yes.
Stage, screen, radio, and TV.
Yeah. No, you. I'm talking about you.
Yes, me. That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, okay. Yeah, she's and very humble, too.
And I'm modest.
Yes, very modest. So my mom has lived several lives in this life. So this will probably be a multi-tiered interview.
Okay.
Just to get, all different kinds of layers and levels and details, because I don't think we can fit several years. We'll say several years into the podcast.
We're not going to say how many.
No, that will be up to you if you want to reveal that. But let's start at the beginning. When you were born,
yes,
in a year that won't be named, it was at a very tumultuous time in our country's history.
Yes.
If you want to disclose that. But, being born then, you obviously didn't remember much until you were, well, what's your earliest memory?
Well, my father told me I couldn't possibly remember my first memory. My first memory is sitting on the shoulders of a man and watching a circus parade and seeing a clown on stilts.
Oh.
And Daddy said, "No, that's impossible. You couldn't remember that. You're only 2 years old."
Oh, yeah. We have that in our family.
Mm-hmm.
We have that skill. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's Ellie to a T. She remembers stuff from way, way back.
Right. Well, of course, as you know, that's a sign of intelligence.
Yes, and Mom is no dummy. We will put that. Among other things. Among her other skills, she is also no dummy. But no, seriously. So you were 2 and you remember that as your first memory.
And that was in Salina, Kansas, which is my father's hometown.
Okay.
Fortunately, we left Salina not too soon after that and moved to Kansas City, Missouri, which I consider my hometown, as you know.
Yes, but I thought you were born in Boston.
I was born in Boston.
That sounds like the beginning of I was born in Boston.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So you were born in Boston, but in 2, you were already in Salinas. Why?
Salina. Because my mother and father met each other at KU when they were students. And then my mother's family moved to Boston. And so Daddy moved to Boston in pursuit. Daddy waited 4 years to marry Mother, and they had been married for 6 months when she announced that she was pregnant.
Oh.
And Daddy said, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. But anyway, he was finishing up at BU, and he had 7 hours to go. He had to leave school. He was working part-time. Mother was working as a buyer at Filene's Basement in Boston. Yeah. And his father said, come back home and I'll put you to work. Because the baby was on the way and they didn't have any money. So anyway.
Well, 7 credit hours left?
7 credit hours left.
Wow.
And he never finished.
And he went to BU.
Yeah.
Which is where my sister went.
Yes. He
Fun
did.
fact for those
Yes.
playing along at home.
Yes.
Okay. Somehow I forgot that fact.
She was a legacy.
I'm good like that. I forget important key details. That's a clap tradition. Harris's remember everything. Claps forget everything. Okay.
So.
All right. So then, well, that's frustrating. So we put him to work doing what?
Well, my grandfather was the head of the Lee hardware division of the H.D. Lee Company. You know H.D. Lee because of Lee Riders, the jeans.
Oh.
But that was the Lee Mercantile. There were 2 divisions. And unfortunately, in 1946, Mr. Lee decided to join the 2 together under the Mercantile, which broke my grandfather's heart.
Oh.
Anyway, he gave Daddy a job as a salesman for the hardware,
Okay.
which Daddy hated. And then the war came. Well, we were at that point in the midst of war, and Daddy had desperately tried to get into every branch of the service.
Right.
But he was 4F, as you probably remember, because
What does that mean for those listeners?
he had a bad heart. He was not physically eligible, even though he was a very fit young man. And he told me, you have no idea what it was like to be a healthy-looking young man out of uniform during the war.
Oh,
He said it was awful. But anyway, he wanted to go to work somehow. So he went to volunteer to work at North American Aviation, a defense plant in Kansas City.
Okay.
So we moved.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Kansas City is a great city for anyone who has not been there. It's not known. Like, people don't say, oh, I'm going to Kansas City as a destination, unless you know about it.
It
It's one of
is,
the
I
best
have to
kept
say,
secrets.
one of the most beautiful cities that I've ever seen.
It is.
And yes, it's a great town.
And now they have a great football team again. So, there's that. Bonus.
Yes.
Yes. All right. So that happened. And your mother was very, I don't want to say dramatic, but she was very involved in the arts. Yes?
Well, not so much in the arts. She became very involved in politics. My parents were very liberal, and my mother became Henry Wallace's Midwest campaign manager when he was running for president in 1948.
Way before Mom was born. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So
political.
Very
but
political.
then what about the farm that you lived on?
well,
where the theater
that
was?
okay. Mother was famous for being a hostess and for being a chef. She was a wonderful cook. And when I was a senior in high school, Mother got a phone call one afternoon from a good friend, Earl Altair, who was the leading interior decorator in Kansas City. And he said, Maggie, I know you've always wanted to have your own restaurant. And he said, I've got an offer for you. He said, I'm taking over the barn at the Wolf Estate and turning it into a straw hat theater. And there's a wonderful house on the property that would be ideal for a restaurant. It has a veranda that goes 3/4 of the way around the house, and it would be perfect for meals to be served before the theater. He said, I want you and your family to pack up. And
Oh, my goodness.
so we did.
Well, that's the best gig ever.
Well, I graduated in June, and we moved
Graduated from where?
Paseo High School.
From high school.
Yes.
Okay, so all right. So in my mom's apartment, she has these awards, trophies, if you will, like Oscars from her days in the
The Barn Theater.
the Barn Theater for Best Actress. And so I didn't ever realize what timing of your life that was. I knew you had to have been, older, not like a kid.
No, I was
But-
in my teens.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's where you first, did you fall in love with theater before
Well,
music or?
I had done plays in high school. So we moved into the house, and there was the barn. There was just one problem.
Oh.
Earl Altair. I was terrified of him.
Oh.
He was very forbidding.
The one who gave the house and everything and bought the place?
He didn't. He bought the barn, but he didn't know the house was. We never mind. So
That sounded interesting. Okay, never mind. Anyway.
I would wait at night until it got dark, and then I would creep down the hill to the theater and creep in when the lights were out and watch rehearsals, and then creep out, thinking no one saw me. Well, one day Mother got a call. It was Earl. He said, Maggie, you've got a daughter, haven't you? Well, I have 2 daughters. Well, I mean the one that sneaks down here every night and thinks I don't see her. So I gather she's stage struck. Well, yes, she's done some plays in high school. Fine, send her down.
Oh.
So with fear and trembling, I went down to face the dragon in his den. And he said, we're doing a play called Gramercy Ghost. He said, and the gal who had the part is sick. You're going to be a lady ambulance driver. I want you, here's what you do. You come on the stage at a certain point, you're holding a stretcher. He said, I just want you to stand there perfectly still and drop the stretcher at a certain point and lift it up again. Okay. Got that? And then make your exit. Okay, I think I can do that. So I did it. But, of course, being a stage-struck teenager, I was mugging for all I was worth. And so Earl came to me and said, can you blow bubbles, chew bubble gum and blow bubbles? And I said, yeah. He said, I want you to keep doing what you're doing. But he said, at one point, I want you to blow a big bubble and pop it.
Okay.
And so every night I would do that. And it's the only time in my career that I ever got a hand on every exit.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that was the beginning. So when we were finished, I worked up all my nerve, and I went up to Earl and I said, Mr. Altair, I really had such a wonderful time doing this. I would like to help out any way I can. I can do props. And he turned on me with this glare. Props? Hell. You're an actress. And don't you forget it.
Oh, boy.
Now, I'm going to have a part for you in a couple of shows, so hang around. And so I did. Mm-hmm. And that was the beginning.
Okay.
But he made me promise that when I went back to school, when I went to KU, that I would take an acting class.
Oh.
Which I did. The only acting class I've ever had. So, anyway.
Which is a good place to have it.
Yeah.
In college.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So you did that. Mm-hmm. And then where does Joe come into the equation?
Oh, Lord. Well, don't we need to tell people who Joe is?
I mean, we can.
Yes. Joe was my first husband.
Okay. We have established
Okay.
that.
Never mind, the less said about him, the better. Anyway, 10 years later, after my theatrical debut, the Barn Players were doing the play Private Lives. And I did the role of Amanda, which is one of my favorite roles of all time.
Private Lives. Okay.
And a very handsome young man named Joe Leahy played my husband. And this was in June of what? 19, what are we talking here? 69.
Mm-hmm.
And we eloped in November of 1969.
Oh, my goodness. Fast movers.
So that's where Joe came in.
Okay, so it was a stage romance.
Yes.
Okay. And I do want to set the stage here too, that sometimes Mom and I talk about this, or I talk about this a lot with Mom, that she has been here on this planet for some of the most earth-shattering events in our world and nation's history.
Yes.
And I find that so fascinating. But what I find more fascinating is that she was here during the Beatles, Led Zeppelin, Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, like all of these icons of rock, and could not have cared less. Did you ever listen to rock?
Not really.
So when you went home or you went to a party, what was playing on the record player?
Oh, I assume that.
Rock.
Well,
Well, okay, so then when you went home and you put on a record,
oh, no.
no, you
No,
didn't
I would-
listen to music.
Not, well, of course, I listen to music all the
That's
time.
exactly.
For example, the Beatles, I was very aware of them. I wasn't necessarily a fan of theirs until Sgt. Pepper's. I love Sgt. Pepper. Oh, what a wonderful album. And Johnny, that's another story. Johnny, my fiance at the time.
How many fiancés?
Yeah, never mind. And Johnny
She had a few.
suggested that I do a poetry reading using the lyrics
Oh,
from Sgt. Pepper's,
okay.
which I did. And I said, tonight I'm going to do a reading of some very talented young British poets.
Oh, nobody knew.
Nobody knew.
Which lyric? Like
Oh.
Sgt. Pepper or like a song from Sgt. Pepper?
Songs.
She's Leaving Home is one of my favorites.
Yes. Eleanor Rigby.
That's not on Sgt. Pepper, but yes.
Isn't it?
No.
It is? I thought it was.
No.
Oh, dear.
No. Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds.
Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Fabulous.
Yes. Well, they were high as
But,
kites.
I was listening to Sinatra. I was listening to
Well, so was
Nat
there
King
like...
Cole. I was, I wasn't ever really ever into that.
Well, but it's interesting because, like, of course, people listen to wildly different genres of music, but I feel like I don't know what the genres were then. Like now, we have our friends that we listen to country music with, and we have our friends that we listen to rock or pop or whatever. But I think about that. Like if I went over to my friend's house for dinner tonight, thinking about some friends, like we would listen to probably classic rock, like Van Morrison, and that's whatever. But yeah, what would you do in your 40s going to a dinner party? What was on the radio? What played?
Well, at our house, what was on the radio was WNEW all the time.
Yeah.
So
NPR.
Yeah.
Lots of NPR. Yeah. That was the thing. We had this badass stereo system in our house growing up in this closet.
Yes.
I suppose was meant to be a linen closet.
I don't know what it was originally, but of course Dad turned it into that.
Yeah.
Because he had wonderful equipment.
We had this awesome amp, and we had a radio that had this like giant satisfying knob that when you turned it, it was like weighted.
Yes.
And you turn it and be like whoosh, whoosh when you turn it. And it would like glow when you turn it on. You'd push this very satisfying button and go click, click. And then it would turn on and get lit, like light up from the background. And then he had a reel-to-reel.
Yeah.
And a CD player,
Yes.
which was a big deal when he first got that.
Yes.
And he came home with 5 CDs. I don't remember all of them. I just know it was Garth Brooks, Rope in the Wind, and Michael Jackson, Bad. And then some other ones.
You had them or he had them?
He had them.
Why did he have them?
I think he won it at a trade show or something. He won a lot of audio equipment, like boom boxes and stuff at trade shows.
Why?
That's what you get swag at trade shows. My dad was in the paper industry, so he traveled a lot and went to all these things and
Yes.
got swag.
Yes.
So, okay. So yeah, the radio was always on though.
Yes.
Either in the kitchen or coming from that system,
Yes.
which is this before Sonos and before your Google and Alexa, where you could just say, hey, play this or whatever.
Of course, every time if we would go to a play or a show, like Dad would always buy the score. We would buy
buy
the
the
recording.
soundtrack?
We'd have
Yeah.
all of that.
Yep.
Chorus line and
Yes, they got to see. Well, what did you get to see in London?
we saw Cats and we saw Les Mis before it came to the States. And it was fabulous.
And you saw Phantom with Michael Crawford
Yes.
and
Fifth row
Sarah
center.
Brightman. Oh, wow. How'd you score those?
Because it was when I was doing PR for the Museum of American Theater, and we had a bus trip for theater museum members, and went to New York on a chartered bus, and had these fabulous front row center seats.
Wow.
Wonderful. Oh,
That's cool.
unforgettable. Oh, fabulous.
I know.
Show,
I'm doing
which you know because you saw it.
Oh, I know. I was obsessed with Phantom of the Opera. It was ridiculous. I'm doing my children a disservice. We have not been to a Broadway show. It just hasn't happened yet. So,
Do you remember your first one that you saw?
first Broadway show might have been The Phantom. And I saw Tommy on Broadway, the Who musical.
Yes, of course.
The Red Shoes we saw at the Schubert.
We saw together, you and I.
At the
At the
Schubert.
Gershwin. At the Gershwin.
Oh, I thought that was at the Schubert. I mean, that could have been the first one.
That was in New York.
Yeah, that might have been the first one. But that's it. I've seen Les Mis, but I don't know where I saw it.
On Broadway?
I don't know.
Oh.
Anyway. Okay, so now we've gotten wildly off track. Where we were talking about music and how you've been around for all the major musical things and all the major political things. But like living in this time, what's it like? Is it different? Like you were here during the Cold War, where there were like bomb shelters built in all kinds of places. Like,
Duck and cover.
yeah,
Oh,
I mean, what does it feel like now? Is it similar? Are there parallels you can draw?
We
or-
are living now in an unbelievable time in our nation's history,
Yes.
unlike any other. Our democracy is under threat, and that hasn't been the case since the Civil War. So, which
Yeah.
I did not live through.
She was not around then.
I want it
for those
clear.
keeping score. Yes, the Civil War. That was not the conflict. Not what we were talking about. Okay. Yeah, it's got to feel. I mean, there's all this information we have at our fingertips at any given time, but
Well, yeah.
I don't know.
We live in an age of instant communication.
We do, which is a blessing and a curse.
Which is a mixed blessing. Yes.
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 Okay, so all that aside, so you did many things with theater, and then were with Joe, but so there were 10 years there between
The beginning.
The beginning
and
and
what
marrying
I
Joe.
wanted to further say about Private Lives and the 10 years later was this is my first lead
okay.
at the Barn. And opening night, I went out to take a bow. And I went to bend over, and the first face I saw was Earl.
Oh,
There was a portrait of him that hung over the box office at the rear of the house, and someone had left the light on over it.
oh,
And I thought how proud he would have been.
oh! So he wasn't alive
Oh,
then.
no, he died when I was a sophomore in college.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, all right. So, in the 10 years between that and your triumphant leading lady role,
Yes.
you were engaged 17 times and lived in 1,200 cities.
Oh,
like,
yes.
how was that when you lived in San Francisco and all these
Yes.
places?
Yes.
Because you did with Joe, you lived in New York
I lived in Denver and New York with Joe.
with Joe. Okay, so you go to college, you don't finish college.
No, I left after the end of my sophomore year.
And what made you leave?
I don't know. I just thought I never really liked school, and I thought, why am I I don't like this. I want to leave. And besides, there wasn't any money left. My grandfather had left some money from my college, but it had run out. And I thought, oh, why don't I just go out and get a job? So I did.
Okay. And did you move to San Francisco or
No,
did you
no.
in Kansas City?
Yes.
So how'd you get to San Francisco?
My father, after my mother died in 1961, and my sister was 12 years old. And my father decided that he wanted to start his life anew, and he decided to take over his company. He worked for a company that had a branch in California, and he decided to move to California, and he asked me to come with them. I mean, I had a job and an apartment and a life, but I left to go to California to take care of my sister.
To set the stage, she's 9.5 years older than her sister. 9.
9.
So
Yes.
she's 9 years older.
Yes.
So bit of an age gap. So that's why it wasn't like, hey, you're 15, come raise your sister. Like she was
No,
an
I
adult.
was a grown person.
Yes.
So we moved to California, and then Daddy remarried, and I was odd person out. I had to get busy and find a job and find a place to live. So we were in Berkeley, and so I started going into San Francisco every day trying to find a job, which wasn't very easy because they weren't too welcoming to newcomers. They were kind of leery about newcomers not staying long and blah 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 blah. But fortunately, I got a job at an advertising agency
Oh.
as secretary to the president.
Oh my goodness.
Yes,
okay.
ma'am. Yes. Okay.
Was it like a Mad Men situation? I mean, that wasn't in the 50s, but
No,
were
no,
they drinking
no.
bourbon and martinis at
No,
lunch?
gosh, no.
No, oh, this is
No,
what I
no.
picture at an ad
No,
agency.
No,
Oh,
no,
man.
not at all.
My
Not
dreams
at
have been
all. Not at all.
dashed. Okay.
But then I had to find a place to live. Mm-hmm. And, oh, Lord, that was hard. They have in San Francisco, or I don't know whether they still do, places called guest houses.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
Yeah, pretty grim. Very Dickensian. Anyway, I thought, I can't do this. What am I going to do? So one night, I came home to my father's house, and I literally got down on my knees.
Oh.
And I said, look, I don't like to come to you direct with requests, but I am at the end of my rope here. I don't know what to do. You've got to help me. I have to find a place to live.
Okay.
Okay.
Why did you have to be on your knees? Gramps did not require that.
No, I was praying to
Oh.
God.
Oh, I thought you were talking to your dad.
No, gosh, no.
You said you went back to your dad's house.
I
thought
went
you
to
were-
Daddy's house. That's where I was
Oh,
living.
good Lord, I thought she was talking
sorry.
to Gramps.
I'm sorry. I was
It's like, why would he was a humble. Anyway.
Oh, no, Daddy would, no. Anyway, I was praying. And so the next day, I went to work. And this gal that I work with, whom I really didn't know that well, came up to me and said, I want to ask you if you do me a favor.
Oh.
I just rented an apartment with my friend Gail, and I'm going to have to leave. I'm going to have to move back to Las Vegas,
Oh.
and she needs a roommate. Would you be interested?
The next day.
The next day.
Wow. Not dramatic at all, that one. Okay. Yes.
So I did.
Oh, well, so your prayers were answered.
Yes.
Good. And you lived there for how long?
In San Francisco?
Mm-hmm.
I lived there for 2.5 years.
Okay. And then where did life take you?
I went back to Kansas City
Why?
because I had fallen in love with a man, and that wasn't going anywhere. And
Oh.
yeah, so
In San Francisco, you
Yeah.
felt. Okay. The gay one?
No, no,
Well, I mean, in San Francisco.
no.
Oh.
No.
Okay.
No.
Was he married?
He was divorced, but he was still in love with his ex-wife.
Oh.
Which, of course, as when you read my book, Pacific Heights, you will see that Molly, the character in Pacific Heights, falls in love with a man whose wife has disappeared.
Yes.
Remember?
Yes.
Okay. So that's where that
Okay.
that plot came from.
Yes. Side note, Mom is a published author several times over and has written books and is re-releasing Pacific Heights, which she called a novel, but I always told her is more of a novella, but has lengthened it, extended it, and it's coming out soon. When is it releasing? Is it out?
It's out.
Oh, it is out.
You can buy it through Amazon.
Well, we shall put a link in the show notes then.
Yes.
So you should buy it. I'll put links to all of your things.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, so then you moved back to Kansas City because it was going nowhere.
Yeah.
But what was in Kansas City?
It was my home. I always considered it my home. So I had friends, and I had started a life there as a single person. So
yes, so you went back to that, and they say you can never go home. So
I did. I've done that several times,
you have,
as you know.
So Mom has beaten that.
Yeah,
busted
that's
myth.
bogus.
Yes. Okay. So went back to Kansas City, and then found fiance number one, or did you have a fiance in San Francisco?
No, just the man I was in love with. We were never.
The inside joke of our family here is that one night Mom drops this truth bomb that she's been engaged, like, I don't know, 4 times. I swear she said 5 or 7 or something crazy. And I was like, what? And she's like, you know this. I've told you this. This is a Mom famous phrase. Oh, I told you that. Oh, I've told you this. No, she did not tell us this. So now it's become family lore, and Eric has latched onto it
Yes,
too.
Eric finds it very amusing.
So that's why I'm trying to get to the bottom of where these men folk were in the timeline of Mothra, which we should also explain. Explain Mothra.
My children claim that I sat at the dinner table and announced that I would now be called Mothra. But this all came from a cartoon.
Yes, from the Simpsons guy.
Yes.
What's his name?
Matt Groening.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the bunny with the single ear. And there's several series of comics where it's like all about Mothra, which is the character from Godzilla.
The giant moth.
And can Mothra fly upside down? And the bunny's like, yes. And and so Anna was there too, I think.
They swear that I announced this at the dinner table, where I don't remember this at all. It just evolved.
Oh, maybe, wine was involved. I don't know. But anyway, now she's known as Grand Moth.
Yes.
To her.
My beloved grandchildren.
Yes. Although I think Jacob and Quinn call you Grandma.
No, they call me Grand Moth.
Quinn, I hear her dropping the TH sometimes.
Well, sometimes. Who knows?
But our kids call you Grandma, which I think is great. It's better than like Meemaw or something, like.
Or Mimi or Nana or.
Well, I mean, no criticism. If you if you go by Nini, whatever you go.
Never mind.
That you do you.
We didn't say that.
We didn't. We love you. We love all the Mimis and Ninas and Hee-haws and.
We know you don't want to be grandmas.
Oh, why? Oh, they don't want to be called grandma, or they don't want to actually be a grandma?
They don't, either one.
Why? You don't want to be a grandma?
I do.
Oh. Well, why do you assume they don't want to be a grandma?
I just know women who,
Oh, well, yes.
Okay, you know that.
I'm too old to be I'm too young to be a grandmother.
Me? No,
I'm not a grandmother. Call me.
I'm young.
Tata.
I'm vital. Yeah.
Call me. I don't know. Whatever.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Anywho, so we shall pause here for this first installment. This has gotten us from birth to San Francisco and back to Kansas City.
Back to Kansas City.
Where we will launch into next episode learning about the 75 fiancés.
Yes.
if she will share. Will she share? Stay tuned and learn about the next chapter. That is Julie Harris.